this episode, we have Joseph Holiday. He is also known as Snakes of Russia. He produces synth doom music under the artist name Snakes of Russia and also produces music for film. Alongside this, he has also produced a new sample instrument with the team at Mantra Instruments. So let's go check out his creative space.
Cool. Hey, I'm Joseph. I make music as Snakes of Russia. That's my artist project. I also do a lot of music for film, TV, trailers, stuff like that, sound design for various things. And this is my studio. Welcome.
Nice. So how did you get into, like, what was your gateway into making music and stuff like that?
I've been playing music since I was 14. I started off playing drums and then I got super into sampling. So basically, I saved all my money at the time and bought a sampler, and it's still right there, the Ensoniq EPS 16 Plus. That was my first sampler, and then I started getting really into industrial music and hip hop and just the art of sampling, and basically was so interested in that world, and that led me into so many different types of electronic music. And then in the 90s, there was just such a flood of incredible electronic music. So then I started making electronic music, and then at the same time playing in bands, in rock bands, and then eventually started producing those bands and producing my own band, and basically anyone that would let me, and then I started getting hired to do so. And then it kind of just built into this thing of me working with so many different people. And then I started co-writing with people, and then it eventually landed me in the sync world, and I've been making a living doing that kind of work for some time now. And then that kind of led me into working on my own stuff again, and under the Snakes of Russia moniker. And then that just got us up to here, where it's just basically just me working on a bunch of different things at the same time. But all kind of centered around snakes. So as an aesthetic and as a kind of an idea of how, when people hire me, they kind of have that in the back of their head as how they would like things to sound. And, I'm very thankful for that, because it took me a long time to get here and to kind of put in the time to be able to actually materialize what I hear in my head as this thing, as a sound, as any kind of sound design, really. Yeah.
Awesome. So you've got, obviously, people are going to see this and be like, oh my God, you've got so much awesome equipment. So if you want to run us through how you would come up with an idea, and like you've got everything kind of in reach at the moment. Like,
yeah.
I know obviously every song is a little bit different, but how would you go about like putting together an idea for one of your own songs?
Well, it's super important to me that everything kind of be within my reach. I've had bigger studios before where there was stuff in the other room that I didn't have patched in, and I never turned it on. Like every synth in here and every piece of hardware is patched in through Ableton. So at any given time, I could pull up the external instrument or effect and use it in a track, or slide over MIDI and stuff. So I usually end up starting stuff just kind of in Ableton with a basic. I have a template here that has just kind of like some basic drum racks and just like a basic monosynth and then a poly, and then I just kind of sketch them out that way. And then once I figure out that, okay, that the Moog would sound great on that, I'll fire up the Model D and then maybe slide the MIDI over. And then I'll usually just kind of like concentrate on one particular sound design element at the time and make that the focal point of the track for now, and then kind of build around that. But at the same time, a lot will come out of experimentation. Like I have this piece here. I got a new module recently here. It's this Vic X, and it's fantastic. And I built this little mini case here to kind of like deep dive into this thing. And then that has just made so much inspiration for tracks and stuff, where I'll get a loop and I'll put it into Ableton, and then once it's in the box, then I'll mess with it and build a track around that. So a lot of times tracks will come out of just experimentation, or a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have days where all I do is experiment, and I'll put them into a folder of loops, of one shots of stuff of my own that I can pull from. So like, let's say I'm in like a record writing mode, and I'll do a period of that, of sound design, of experimentation, of my own, and then put them into a folder, and then pull from that so I can get inspiration really fast from something that I already did and make a track out of it. So that is really what I like to do with a lot of projects. Like, I just finished writing some additional music for this film, and we made a palette of stuff to pull from. So I always have that there for the project, and it helps you work really fast and keeps everything kind of like concise within the project. And the project itself, whether it be a record or an EP or a film score or an instrument, everything kind of has its own idea, its own palette, if you will. Like, so I like to work that way a lot. So, but then other times, like, if I have a melody or something in my head, I do have just the VIs pulled up or the Ableton instruments pulled up in Ableton, and I just simply do it that way and then replace everything. But I'd say a lot of times, when we get new plugins and stuff, it's really exciting when we're going through all the presets. And that's why, as much as I love sound design and making my own things, the presets are there for a reason, like to explore the instrument. So sometimes, you get a new synth and you're just kind of ripping through the presets and you get like 10 in, and then there's this incredible sound. You tweak and make your own, and then all of a sudden you're off to writing a new track. So I think, getting new things is like, we're all kind of addicted to that a little bit. The gas is very real, but there's also something to be said about the inspiration that a piece of gear gives you, whether it be a synth, a virtual instrument, or a guitar. It's all gonna, give a new little creative spark, and I think that's really important. I do have gear in here that I've had for years. Obviously, the sampler that we talked about, and some tape machines, and the Space Echo, and those are things that I turn to because I know what they'll bring to the project, and I'll bring those in later. Like, let's say I think this needs a little bit of Space Echo, but getting new gear and having a new thing, it's very important kind of to the process every once in a while. And that doesn't have to be a $3,000 synthesizer. That could be like, a $30 plugin that just like makes new sound for you and inspires you, and you get a little bit of sidetracked while you're exploring it. Which is why I build boxes like this, because I do get distracted really easily and want to just kind of jump in and make a track out of something I made. So I make boxes like this so I can kind of like actually go out and leave the studio a little bit and just kind of like put a pair of headphones on and explore it a little bit. So every time I get a new piece together, with the Electron boxes are great for that. I can take it out, I can leave here and sit on the couch, and just kind of explore. And then I'm not forced to, jump in and make a whole track like right away, which I guess is not an awful problem to have. It's great, but sometimes I'd want to explore instruments a little bit deeper than I do, So yeah.
So we can see you've got essentially three little modular racks.
Yeah.
So how we talked about the small one. It's used for mainly like. I've heard Richard Devine does the same thing. That
Cool.
When he gets a new module, he'll put it into a little box.
Yep.
Take it out of the studio.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And then really
cool.
learn it inside out.
Works
and then
for
it will
him.
go into the rack somewhere, sort of.
Yeah,
thing.
that's great.
Obviously, he has so much.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. I had no idea he did that, and obviously that yields amazing results in his work. So that's
in
that's
good
great.
company.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool.
But you've got like the big one here,
yeah.
and then you have the smaller in quotations to the right.
Right. So this is actually like my live setup here that I use for live shows and stuff like that. So I'm reworking this live case, and I'm taking stuff out. I took stuff out and put it in here, but I'm constantly tweaking this one. So this one is more like the live case, and this is more of like modules that are just for sound design, for studio stuff, for records and stuff, bigger format modules, or sometimes I have like the smaller version in here, but for the most part that's kind of the thing when I'm making a patch that I'm using for a recording or a record or sound design. It leans a lot on this case with a few utility modules in here. This is just the live case and the live setup. And then this is kind of always changing, as you see. I'm experimenting with a different setup here, but yeah.
And I can see you got the tape on the bits of equipment in front. Is that part of your live set? Like on you've got the controller. And
yes. Yeah. So this is one of these Native Instruments Traktor controllers, and I was using the Octatrack forever, and I love it, but so much of my live show it's a combination of it being stem based and then sending MIDI to the modular case. And I was doing that fine with the Octatrack, but I felt like if I use Ableton to write and to record, and I felt that I wanted to use it live also. And kind of the moment where I went all the way in on it live was when I started working visuals and lights into the show. And it's just so easy to do that with Ableton and Max for Live. So that's when I switched from the Octatrack to Ableton for Live. But what I really missed from the Octatrack was the crossfader, because I used to do such cool things with scenes and the crossfader. So I was looking for kind of just a DJ crossfader that was just this big, and I wound up finding this, which is great because I have all of these mapped to different controls within Ableton for the live show, and I use it so much more than the fader. So yeah, this is kind of the live setup here, and I still love the Octatrack, and I pull out if I want to do some like kind of on the spot or like impromptu kind of modular patches and stuff. And maybe one day I'll use it again for that. But for my live show, it's really dependent on me taking stems and remixing them and adding new MIDI on top. So it's just, Ableton's a little more conducive to that for the live show. I'm a hack of a guitar player and bass, but sometimes it's just easy to get ideas out. I grew up playing drums, as I said, so I much more of a rhythmic guy. But yeah, I still have them just to express ideas and stuff. And like I said, I used to do a lot more co-writing sessions that leaned a little more into guitar than I do now. That's a closet that was a vocal booth that I don't check much vocals now, so now it's just I just store stuff in there. Store all my merch and live gear in there. But yeah, so this is my long time Desert Island synth, Moog Model D. This is the reissue that came out about 7 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago. Not the recent reissue, the one from about 6 or 7 years ago that I have and I love, and it's on almost every track of mine as either a bass voice or a lead voice, usually run through the Space Echo. DSI Oberheim OB6, which is also one of those instruments that I was talking about, that when I got and started messing around with it, I had to just stop and make tracks because it was just so inspiring. It's great. A lot of the chord-based stuff on my new recordings is completely this. I love it. It's incredible. I got the desktop just because, space is a commodity in here. So that Ableton Push, that is pretty much in addition to I have an 88 key here, but sometimes I definitely like this better for drum programming and stuff, and to bang out quick leads. And then the 88 key more for traditional chords and from playing piano parts or and then right in front of me, the almighty Overstayer modular channel, which is a huge part of my sound design process. I bought it with the intention of using it as a master bus processor, but very quickly it became a very sound design tool. Like I bring stuff into it, mangle it, crush it, and then print it, and then there's no way it's always changing. There's no way it could be more of a set it and forget it thing for me anyway. I'm sure people could use it in that way, but for me it's just such a powerful sound design beast that's more what I use it for. And then the set it and forget it 2-bus processor here is this Louder Than Liftoff Silver Bullet Mark II, which is incredible. It's one of those boxes that it's just always on my master, and then when I click it off, I'm like, oh, I lose, you hear the difference when you pull it out. So and there's a few kind of go-to settings that I have, but for the most part, it kind of stays a little bit in the same ballpark, and then I just kind of adjust things for the mix as I need it and make notes. I tend to use this more for like record stuff than I do if I have stuff that I need to make a lot of adjustments and print a lot of stems. I kind of, in that case, I'll leave it on a couple different settings, and it's kind of like the deal, because of course when you're printing through this, it's real time. So then it's, you know, if it's work that I know that I need to do a lot of revisions, like if it's something for a trailer that needs to be done, you know, today, then, you know, I might use a plugin. But the rest of the time, anything I'm doing for Snakes of Russia, any record stuff, and mixing for other people, it's always on. It's incredible. Yeah, I have this little Fostex compressor here, which is the most disgusting, crude compression, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic on drum loops and stuff. Yeah, and then some Electron boxes here, the Syntact, which I help make some sounds for, and then the Analog Heat here, which is incredible. And then yeah, we talked about the modular stuff. I have another push over here that I have just kind of set up for the live show, that this way I don't have to take this one out of the studio, which is kind of one to go, and it also serves as a backup too. And then outboard, I've just got just 4 channels of API here. Have some of the warm audio stuff, which is great. This Pultec clone is fantastic. The Distressor, which has been my compressor du jour for years, and then yeah, and then just some random stuff down there, Patch Bay, and then we kind of move over here. This is the Juno 106, which is you know, an awesome poly, my second synthesizer ever. And then this is my first synth ever. It's a Roland SH101, should need no introduction. I've had it since I bought it in the 90s. It's great. I played in a band where I just played this and a sampler with bass and drums, so this thing has been everywhere. It has so much stuff spilled on it and in it. I had it serviced recently, and it was a funny conversation about how much stuff was inside here. But it's great. It still works, and I love it. And then, like I mentioned, my first ever sampler here, the Ensoniq EPS 16 Plus, still works. Had to get the system disc off of eBay because I lost a system disc, but I used to have the SCSI port to have. I had one of those zip drives, maybe I think they were called. Had one of those to run stuff a little faster. The Knaz, the Nas or Knaz, I don't know how you pronounce it, but this is great. The Moisturizer, which is like an awesome spring reverb with a filter and LFO. You can get crazy sounds with it. And then the good old Space Echo, which is just absolutely awful in the best way possible. Especially this one. The tape's a little old. I won't change it until I have to, because it's definitely not. When I need a clean delay, this is not it. But for everything else, it's the guy. I basically I run the Moog a lot through it. Basically any like mono synth in here, I try to put it through this guy, and sometimes I'll turn the echo volume down and the reverb volume down, and just kind of have like this crude EQ here for it, and it just gives such an awful, in the best way possible, of course, sound to like the tail a little bit. And sometimes I'll have this echo really short and then the reverb up a little bit, and then switch through the modes. And sometimes I'll have the all-out delay and then you know, have a super long tail. And it's great. I love it so much. I try you know, I try to use it as much as possible on everything, just to give it a little bit more character. I have to always remember to turn it off, because those motors are I definitely don't want to move this thing again for as long as I have to, because when it gets serviced, it's such a pain, and these motors burn out. So I try to just kind of use it and then turn it off, and sometimes I forget and I come back and I see the light on, I'm like, you know. But you know, people that have them, You know what I'm saying? This is something I got fairly recently. It's this Dynacord VRS-23. It's this awesome stereo bucket brigade delay and that can go into like reverb territory. I love it. It's all over most of my new projects as a short reverb and kind of a medium reverb. It's awesome. I love it. And it was like this thing that I just kind of stumbled on eBay, or when I was researching stereo bucket brigade delays, and then I went down this YouTube hole, and it's wonderful. I love it. I use that a lot on like I said, my record and this instrument that I worked on through Mantra. This is all over the place on that. Some tape machines, that stuff. I use this one far more than I use the Fostex, and my son comes along and tries to unspool it here. That's so that we need to fix that. but yeah, I use this a lot. I just run stuff to and run it back into Ableton, and I have this awesome delay that this my buddy has a company called Deftone Audio, and he makes these one-of-a-kind pieces here, and this is actually, the parts were from a old tape machine, but he just made this incredible delay here. And the Lyra here, the Octatrack on the sidelines here. And then the Rhodes here that we fire up every once in a while, again, also sounds great through the Space Echo. I'm a big Nils Fromm fan, so that combo is just something I'm always trying to emulate, the sound he gets from a Rhodes and a Space Echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that brings us full circle.
We can talk about your instrument for a bit if you want.
Yeah. I just released this instrument with a company called Mantra. They're a Canadian company that makes these really awesome instruments in their own proprietary player called the Mandala engine. And Brian, the owner of the company, he's an incredible composer that travels the world and gets all these insane instruments and samples them and turns them into these instruments. So when he approached me about doing something, I was super excited, because they really didn't have anything kind of in their repertoire like what I thought that we could bring. So I spent a couple months just sampling a bunch of different instruments in here through a bunch of different effects chains and stuff, a little bit of granular through the modular, and then we basically created this instrument, and then I took some time to make some presets, and it was released a couple weeks ago. I'm sure by the time this comes out, everyone will be able to grab it, and we can grab it now, actually. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, and it was super cool. I love getting stuff. I use a lot of impulse responses on it because I love getting stuff out of the box a little bit. Like on all my recordings, I like to just kind of reamp stuff. Like even in here, just through the speakers, through my iPhone. And then layer that back in with a direct sound. I do that all the time. I love using impulse responses in Ableton. I have them from like every studio that I've recorded in the last couple years, and I love just kind of pumping stuff through that. So, you know, that the instrument has a lot of that on it. And also in here, like I do this thing with kick drums where I'll just have the iPhone here and just make a voice memo of the one-shot kick, and then just bring that back into Ableton and just tuck it, and it just gives this quality, just this disgusting low end, and that just mixed right and EQ'd with the right cuts. It sits perfectly, and it's a sound that's completely unique, you know, to one's room, you know. So it's great. I've done stuff before where I bring a Bluetooth speaker into the vocal closet and play a beat in there and get it over the vocal mic, you know. So like I said, it's a small place, but we get some pretty gnarly sounds in here.
Awesome.
And we forgot to talk about the Siren. I use this a lot. It's this like limited monosynth that Moog did one year for NAMM, and I went to their pop-up, which was in Silver Lake one year instead of Anaheim, and I was limited, so I got it, and it's great. It's fantastic. I use it a lot for leads, again through the Space Echo. So that's about it. That's all
And where can people find your stuff online?
You can go to snakesofrussia.com, and that will kind of lead you off in any direction. Sample packs, instruments. All my work is on Spotify as well, and YouTube. I do some modular videos every once in a while that I put up on YouTube. But yeah, snakesofrussia.com is kind of the hub, I would guess. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram. I do a lot of stuff on there. And yeah, I would say that's about it. And please get in touch. And yeah.
Awesome.